Good evening and welcome to an all-new episode of Holotheatre. As always, I am Dan Tartaglione, also known as D Tartag1. Tonight we have an interesting and exciting show. Tonight myself and Jared interviewed Eric Lonquist, acclaimed commentator for all things esports, card games, and just gaming in general. But first, before we get into our interview that we did earlier in this week, we got a little things to talk about as this is the final week before we get into nationals. So I don't know if you're excited or not. I know I'm excited. This weekend it is going to be a great event. A lot of preparation has been going on into it. I know Garrett out in Minnesota, he's excited to run it. So it's going to be a fun weekend. Unfortunately, like I said, I'm not going to be able to go, but a lot of a lot of big name players are going to be in attendance. So let's get right into talking about nationals really quick. So again, nationals is everything starts Friday evening with the team tournament. Registration starts at 6:30, goes and starts at 7. If you don't have the weekend pass, it's $10 to play. Nope, 3 games are going to be played, and then it's all going to be based on differential. So you're going to have one member of the team play light side, one member play dark side, no deck lists, and again, cumulative differential. So say, like for example, if I play in light side and win by 15, and my partner loses by 12, we have a cumulative differential of 3. So that's happening Friday night. Saturday is the main event. Registration starts at 9. The tournament starts at 10 a.m. It's pretty standard with all things tournament related for day 1. So they'll have the tournament and tournament announcements going on at 10 a.m. Make sure you have your deck list submitted. If you are going, you can submit your deck list digitally to decklist@starwarsccg.org. Otherwise, if you're just doing a hard copy, you can give them out to Garrett, but the preferred method is right now is to submit them digitally, just sending them over to the email. Easiest way to do it is to go onto GEMP and to import them that way. If you do not know how to do that, well, you are in luck, because I will show you really quick. So all you would do is go into your deck builder, go over to one of your lists, say if you wanted to download this Hitco, you would just do that, download it right to your computer, and then attach it like it was any sort of attachment. So that's all you got to do. And then once Sunday is complete, again, it is going to be 8 games. It's going to be a long day for those who play. It's also going to be a long, fun day for those who do our commentary and watching. But after 8 games, we'll have our top 8 announcement that night. And then Sunday morning, registration for the top 8 will start at 9 a.m. Tournament will start at 10. Again, with those ones, they will be doing deck checking. So you got to make sure you submit if you make the top 8, you got to submit your deck lists and everything. And then we'll have 6 games, essentially, to crown a nationals champion. For that one, deck lists are going to be due at 9 a.m. You are able to change them from Saturday to Sunday. So, again, if you want to change up your decks and everything, feel free to. And then right after that starts, for anybody who wants to play in the Constellation, you are able to play. It's going to be 6 games, starts at 10:30, and that one is strength of schedule. And then there are prizes going to be given out to everybody in the top 8, and then there's going to be prizes given out in the Constellation 1st through 4th. So again, that is Nationals. If you want anything else going on with Nationals, Fantasy Nationals is open. Thanks to Matt Wadden for running this. All you got to do is go over and check out the forum post, see who is picked out to be. We got some rankings, like Joel says, worth 60 points. You have 100 points to spend on your team. You need at least 3 team members. And you can go from there. So right now we have a few people already signed up for that, and that's always going to be. It's always fun to do this. Again, there are a few people who are not registered who are on this list, so those are just people who said they might be going but haven't registered yet. So make sure you join in on the fun there. And again, make sure if you are going, make sure you check the policy, the COVID policy. And right now we are at 34 players registered. We had a few other people sign up for the main event, so great to see that. And yeah, it's a fun week up right now. So hopefully everybody will stick around this weekend, watch some live Nationals coverage. Coverage will start at 11 Eastern, or I'm sorry, 10 a.m. Yes, 11 Eastern and 7 Pacific on Saturday. Myself, Bill Kafer, Jeremy DePaulo all have signed up to do commentary throughout the day, and we'll be having full coverage of all 8 games going on from our various homes and houses on Saturday. So we won't be there at the event, but we'll be there in spirit. And then if you're not going to, if you aren't not still going to Nationals and you still want to play some Star Wars, well, I would suggest getting set with some of your Jawa decks. And the reason for that is the 3rd annual Jawa Brawl is right around the corner. It is starting in 5 days. So that will be, again, that's going to be starting on Monday. So those who are at Nationals won't have to, they'll have some time in like a day or two to get back into it and sign up for it. All you got to, if you want to play in it, it is going to be 6 weeks from July 18th through August 28th. So a little over a month, about a month and a half to enter into the free tournament. Again, free. All you got to do is fill out a Google form questionnaire, enter in some information, and there you go. And you are submitted. Again, the current ban list is posted on the forums. It's a pretty straightforward ban list. Maybe we'll see something change after Nationals. I doubt it, but we'll see. The tournament directors are Kendall Hallman, Bill Kaford, and Jared Napolitano. There's going to be some digital prizes, some physical prizes. Kendall Hallman's going to be giving out achievements. He had posted a list on that. You'll have 45 minutes to play on GEMP. 6-minute extension. Spectators are allowed. And then there you go. And then new virtual cards and erratas are legal as soon as they are operational in GEMP. So if set 19 drops, if set 19 drops, it will be it will be legal into play in the Java Cup. And if you got any freezes, crashes, any issues, make sure you send over stuff to Jared, Bill, and Kendall. And then again, there are some pretty awesome prizes for this. Prizes include poker chips, gem boxes, 2 PC XL deck boxes, 2 random water bottles, booster packs given out. And then 1st through 4th, we'll get a Reflections 1 foil Dark Side uncut sheet, XL boxes, sealed Premier pack with Boba Fett blaster rifle. If you're watching this and you have no interest in the Dark Side Reflections 1 uncut sheet, well, your favorite Holotheatre host is currently looking for one. I have a light side one currently framed and on display right in front of me, essentially. But if anybody wins the dark side one and wants to donate it or make an offer that I can't refuse, well, I would be interested and eternally grateful. So, but like I said, the Jawa Cup is right around the corner. So make sure you get your brush up on your Jawa decks and get ready to play in some exciting Jawa games. So, and as I said at the beginning of the show, tonight's episode had Jared Napolitano and Eric Lonquist on earlier this week. We did about a 45-minute interview on all things Star Wars and talking about what he does. He is a well-known commentator of esports, and he dabbled into a little bit with online card games and stuff like that. So I'll be running that interview here in just about a second. So make sure you guys stay throughout the interview. And I know I didn't give out a token card last week. So make sure you can watch the entire interview because your token card is going to be given out during this interview. I will be back right after the interview to wrap things up. And then again, we'll make sure you guys take into this weekend for Everything Nationals. So enjoy the interview, and I'll be back in about 45 minutes. Mr. Eric Lonquist. Did I say that right, Eric?
You did.
Okay.
Yes, Eric Lonquist. Yeah, it's not a common name, but like we were talking about before the show, you're all too familiar with last names that people struggle with. So
Yes, everybody struggles with my last name, and honestly, I struggle with 90% of the people's last name. So I wanted to make sure that I pronounced your last name right.
I
Uh,
appreciate it.
but again, thank you, Eric. And joining us today is the marketing advocate himself, Jared. How are you doing today, Jared?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me, Dan. Honor for you to join us, Eric. Really looking forward to this interview.
Appreciate it. I'm happy to be here. It's been amazing seeing what the players community has been doing over the years, and I just got my like box of swag from the support I sent earlier this year, and I had to get the Admiral Raddus deck box because there's nothing better than the Admiral Raddus deck box. Come on, like
Yeah.
giant Mon Calamari face. Like what's it not to love?
I don't know. I'm partial to the Darth Vader one myself.
I mean, he's iconic. I'll give that to you. That's true. But
Yeah,
see,
the
it's all
Raddus
about
one, I
the
think
mental game.
the color on the Raddus one really came out really nice. So, but I think all of them are really cool.
I just feel like you slammed the Admiral Raddus deck box down in front of somebody. That's a statement. You know, that's gonna get in someone's head a little bit. You know, that you're confident enough to walk up with an Admiral Raddus deck box. They're gonna be just quaking their boots. You've already won the mental game at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear that you like the donation package that you received. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. And I'm glad to hear that you received it. Jared and the marketing team have done a great job this year with the donation packages. Just to reiterate that. And as always, it's great to see the community coming together to support the PC in this way and as other ways as well. So, but let's get into talking a little bit about you, Eric. So, you're one of the more professional gamers that we've had on to this program. So, would you want to talk about a little bit how you've got into Star Wars CCG and became a professional gamer?
Yeah, well, it's funny because my professional gaming has only like briefly touched on card games from time to time, but I have played card games in my own life since I was like, I guess 11, 12 years old or something like that. I started playing Magic in like 95 or so, around like the revised Ice Age era or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. I was like 11 or 12, yeah. And then shortly after that, around the same time actually, but shortly after I discovered Magic, I discovered there was a Star Wars card game, and Star Wars, you know, as a kid, was my favorite movies of all time. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's a Star Wars card game. So I had to get into it,
Mm-hmm.
got really into that. And then tragically in 1996 or 7, I believe it was, my entire card game collection was stolen out of my locker in high
Oh
school.
no.
Oh,
All my
no.
Magic cards and all my Star Wars cards. And I was just a broke high school kid, right? So I didn't have enough
Oh
money
gosh.
to get back into both games. And so I
Oh,
had to pick one. And I thought about it for a long time, and I picked Star Wars, which may not have
yeah.
been the financially correct decision, but it's a decision that I have never regretted. And so yeah, played a lot of basically southern Minnesota, from north central Wisconsin to southern Minnesota, southwest Minnesota, South Dakota, like any event I could get to. Nothing
Mm-hmm.
huge, but I would just go and play in all the tournaments I could. And that was like late 90s through, you know, when the game ended basically in the early 2000s. And yeah, it was an amazing time. And I don't have a lot of cards from that era, but I've built up a large collection since then, where I'm always trying to like
Nice.
find paper stock to buy up from people. So yeah,
Oh,
kind of
nice.
recollecting now at this point.
Yeah, that's timely just because we have probably our biggest, or maybe the second biggest major of the year. Definitely our second biggest. Worlds is the biggest, but next weekend we have this coming weekend, right?
Yes.
Nationals.
Yeah.
Our U.S. National Championship is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So we have pretty bustling bustling community in Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Wish I could be
too.
there. I've got a lot of family up there. I was just up there for an esports thing just a few weeks ago. So I guess I should finish answering your question that you asked me earlier. Where so basically my profession is esports commentator. So for those who aren't familiar, it's like sports commentary but for video game tournaments. And I started that in just as a hobby, just for fun, in 2010 when I was living in Mankato, Minnesota, coincidentally about an hour away from Minneapolis. But I had a YouTube channel that grew. Got an offer then in early 2011 to move to South Korea to do English language commentary for the StarCraft 2 tournaments out there.
Oh, nice.
And then it just kind of grew from there. So yeah, so I lived in South Korea for about 6 years, working for mostly the Korean television broadcaster on GameNet, OGN. Did StarCraft 2, League of Legends, did a lot of Hearthstone from the beginning of that game. So that there's the card game connection in my job at least. And then came back to the US in 2017 to help Blizzard start the Overwatch League. Did that for a couple of years. Didn't like how it was run, so I left in 2019 and been freelance since then, doing a lot of different games. Just got done with the World of Warcraft Mythic Dungeon International yesterday, and doing Rainbow Six North American League last day of that stage on Wednesday. So just lots of esports, and then I work on the Scholastic side as well. So I'm the director of esports broadcasting at Bethany Lutheran College in Mankato, Minnesota. And then I also run an internship for a high school esports organization called the Minnesota Varsity League that's based in Minneapolis. So trying to, after being in it for so long, trying to kind of share that knowledge and help kind of get the next generation of gaming professionals ready, you know?
That's amazing. Like, as somebody who does a lot of that work for one game, that's incredible that that you're doing this, especially in giving it back to the younger generation so it can continue.
We gotta, I always said, like, I mean, esports is such a new industry still, like, and so we have to look at it ourselves. And I think this extends to the card game broadcasting industry as well, basically, where we have to take it upon ourselves to accept that we're industry builders. And so that means everything we do should be making sure that the next generation is like better at what we do than we are, you know, that will ever be. And they're making more money. They've got more viewers. Everything's doing better. So that's what I'm trying to do in esports now after you know, being around for a while, I guess.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's really
a lot of card games too.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I do like the background. I see that you have at least one uncut sheet behind you. Is that a Star Wars or is a Magic one?
I do. I have three actually. So those are dark side and light side rares from Jabba's Palace, and then right behind me are foil light side rares from Endor.
Awesome.
And so yeah, I just picked those up over the years, and then these are Magic cards. This is the Bob Ross you know, Secret Lair land set. But yeah, so I mean, I when I discovered you could get those, I bought a few and I framed them up on my wall, and they confuse the heck out of anyone who sees them because no one has any idea what they are. But then I get to explain and talk about this card game. So, and I just love looking at it, you know. I just love surrounding myself with things that inspire me, and occasional bicycle storage for my office as well. So that happens once in a while.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with storing some bikes in your office as well.
If you have to. Yep, that's right.
So you mentioned a little bit ago that you got the donation package from Jared and the PC. Did you do I saw that you did a Twitch broadcast showing what was inside the box. How did that go off?
Oh, I just did a Twitter post actually. I don't want to misrepresent myself. Maybe I should have done a Twitch stream actually, but I just did a Twitter post and took pictures of everything. So
yeah, okay. I remember when you first came back. What was it, about a year or so ago? You did a Twitch, like a box breaking, right? A premiere.
That's right.
Came across you and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And from there, just kind of, you know, learned. I guess everyone's got, or not everyone, a lot of people still have some sealed product then. And I guess what was like the tipping point, I guess, of getting back an interest getting sparked up again in Star Wars CCG?
I think the big part of it, because I've always kind of kept an eye on what the player committee has been doing over the years, because I just didn't have time to participate, but I enjoyed keeping track of it, you know, because I thought it was really cool that people were keeping in what is, in my opinion, the best card game ever made alive, and you know it is, because there's no other card game, I think, that people would put this much like effort and dedication into, you know, in terms of supporting the scene. not just like keeping events going, but just like creating all the virtual sets, not just like maintaining, but like really actively like developing and growing the game. So I've always kind of kept an eye on that. And so then you fast forward to the pandemic, where even in esports, where we can transition online from being in the studios. Yeah, that's nice, but there was also just a huge pullback too, right? Where there was a lot of income lost by a lot of broadcasters as well. So I found myself with more time on my hands than I had previously. I had just left the Overwatch League at that point, which I decided to leave like a month before the pandemic like happened, basically. So not the best timing, but everything worked out in the end. But I had more time on my hands, basically. So I was like, well, what can I do from home? And I thought like doing some box breaks might be fun. And I'm like, you know what? I want to do a Star Wars CCG box break. Like I want to. I know not many people know this game, but if I do it, then more people find out about it, and it's just gonna be fun opening those packs. So I picked up a box of Premiere off of eBay and did that, and then that got me back into like, well, maybe I should build some decks, maybe I should play the games, and I then shortly before the pandemic, I also had like the Star Wars CCG dream scenario where I walked into a card game shop in my city. And I was just like, hey, you wouldn't happen to have any of those old Star Wars cards back there? And they were like, you know what? Some guy just brought in his like dad's old collection. And apparently his dad had passed away, and he had all these Star Wars cards. And I was like, oh, well, I'll check him out. What do you got? And he brings out like literally that one of those huge like 4,000 count boxes or whatever, and then like multiple binders and like another couple long boxes of stuff. And I'm like, holy, it's like maybe 6,000 to 8,000 cards, I would say. And and everything is just like meticulously kept up. Like whoever this person was, I feel responsibility to care for his collection now, because he had like everything in sleeves, everything was super well organized. So I was like, wow, no matter what it is, I'm going to buy this and care for it. I don't want it to just languish, right? So I was like, all right, well, how much do you want for it? And the guy goes, no, $50. And I'm like, done. Okay, so that was kind of the big restart of my Star Wars card collection again. But I mean, this collection has almost everything. It's missing the ultra rares. It does not have the ultra rares, so I need to get those again. But it's got pretty much everything else. So I feel extremely fortunate. And like I said, a responsibility now to take care of the stuff. So I like to think it's sort of a continuation of whoever this was, passion for the game. And hopefully I can play a lot of games in person and kind of keep it going, keep putting the cards to good use,
Yeah. And you did play a game in person, right? With Dan, were you actually at the event in Southern California?
Yeah, I was. They do events at this place called Emerald Night up in Burbank from time to time. And so I was up there for one of those, and that was like the first in-person Star Wars games I played in like probably 20 years, no joke. And it was just great. Like all those feelings came, flooding back, right? And I didn't have anything built at the time because I wasn't super familiar with the virtual sets yet. So I borrowed some decks from people, because the crowd there is obviously very nice, and they had decks to borrow, and so yeah, I did that and had a ton of fun. Had a couple beers with the guys afterwards, and it was great, So I've been playing a little bit online since then. I wasn't able to get to our most recent in-person meetup because of work, but hopefully I'll make the next one.
Which event did you go to? Was it back in June, or was it a little earlier back in
it was it was earlier. I think it was the April one. Yeah,
the April one.
It was one earlier this year. Yeah.
And I think, because I think I was there, and I think I met you.
You might have been. Now that you say that, you might have been. Yeah. Oh, hi again. I'm terrible remembering people, so sorry about that.
Same.
Yes, I was there. Yeah, with Batmouse running the whole thing. Yeah,
infamous Batmouse. Yeah, he runs the SoCal League, and he's also the Sheriff of Gemp is his unofficial title that he sets up a lot of the leagues on Gemp, which Gemp or Gemp, I know people always say different things, but that's really just been like such a boon for our game. And I think one of the best things about it is that it helps new and returning players. I think what what's interesting about this, and maybe you have some experience with it. A lot of people come back and they're like, the Gemp was doing something wrong, or it's not very intuitive. And it's like, I think a lot of people realize is that the way a lot of us might have played the game a long time ago wasn't always the exact right way.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
when they set that up, like because it's all rules enforced, which is really good in a lot of ways, but it also makes you realize that it is this like humongous game of trading actions back and forth, and every single activate one force, that's an action. So I guess that was one of my questions I wanted to ask you, is just how has your experience been on Jump?
It's been really good. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but it's not too bad, honestly. I think it's pretty easy to pick up. The rules enforcement is a big part of that, but the thing that I struggle with is the timer in tournaments, because I'm just like, not super familiar with yet. Like I did lose a tournament game the other day on time that I was clearly going to win, so that was a little bit frustrating. But so just kind of learning how to play fast again, and learning to hit pass a lot faster, and not losing a couple seconds each time to be like, oh yeah, I have to pass. But I mean, that's just part of the mechanics of it now, is you need to have that in there, because you need to have the opportunity to do actions. So yeah, I think it's really good. I used a very similar system called Jigoku for the Legend of the Five Rings living card game that I played quite a bit of in the last few years. And I had heard rumors that there was a connection between Jemp and Jigoku as far as the development goes, but I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not sure.
I thought my understanding is that it was like the framework of it was from the Lord of the Rings, Jumpuku, I think is the full name. Maybe we're talking about the same thing.
There's a Lord of the Rings one too. Yeah, for the old Decipher Lord of the Rings game. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they probably all are related, but I know the original founder of Jump, a guy named Troy, based out of Minnesota, actually. So he got it all running, and he was kind of gradually doing set by set, like premiered A New Hope, like from 2013 through 2017, and then
it's really incredible, actually.
Yeah, it blows my mind all the time that a game's so complex. We have this option, and I think there's a lot of people that are just so appreciative of it. Older players, returning players, and brand new players. And I think one of the best things is that it allows alternative or retro formats, like including an alternative or sealed stuff, which, as you were talking about, cracking open a box, like that's a feeling that I know some people really like. Even though it's digital, you're opening a pack. What's my rare? What are the cards I'm getting? So it's opened up a lot of possibilities for the game.
I like that I can play open, and I'm trying to learn the open format and get familiar with the V cards and everything. But I also like going back and playing, Premier to Death Star 2, because that was like my, that was my era, basically, I didn't play a ton after Death Star 2 came out, just because I went away to college and I just got really busy. So that I like to play games in that era as well, and do silly things like my deck with 30 Abyssins and stuff like that,
I think that was probably like what a lot of people consider just the golden age, because that came out like June 2000. And that's always been really by far the most popular retro format on Jump has been Premier Death Star 2, because by then,
it was a great era.
They worked out some of the problems. There weren't shields yet. The game wasn't. It didn't have too many cards. But yeah, that's what the current retro event. I just played a game this morning, actually, game 6 of the league. But yeah, it's a really good era.
Cool. Yeah, I love it. I played a bunch of different. I usually played You Can Either Profit by This or Be Destroyed on the light side. The old version of the deck, and then on dark side, if I wanted to win, I would play my awful cheesy, like I call it the Endless Abyssin deck, where you just do all that kind of stuff, do Abyssin Ornament to just be annoying, like a Maya with the Audience Chamber, all that stuff, and then just be a total jerk with that deck. But it's effective. But then if I wanted to have a little bit more fun, I would do like Carbon Chamber testing, or I actually liked a version of it where I didn't use the objective. I would just like catch people and carbon freeze them over and over again, And it's not the most competitive thing, but it's just fun, So that was all about being based on Cloud City. Yeah.
Yeah. So, sorry to interrupt you, but I was gonna say that's actually one of the challenges. We have an upcoming event right now, and then one of the challenges is carbon freeze somebody, and you have to do it either by the effect or by all too easy. And of course, there are some points of clarification, because nowadays there's frozen cards that start off frozen and stuff like that.
That can't count. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
So you need to go by the spirit of the rule. Yeah.
So you've been playing in the retro event on GIMP, is that correct?
A little bit. I played a couple games, and honestly, like my last 2 months have just been so insanely busy that like I didn't feel like I was able to prepare enough to like play a good game, So I passed on that, but I'll be playing in other ones later in the year. Now that things are gonna usually as the year goes on, things slow down a little bit in esports, and you get a little bit more breathing room. You're not working on broadcast 5 days a week and then preparing for broadcast the other 2 days. So.
Oh my gosh, can't imagine.
Yeah.
If you like Abyssins, though, the Premiered Reflections 2 League. That's event 5 of the league, which is probably going to be another month and a half or so.
Okay.
I played that at the throwback event of Worlds, like played like 4 Mayos and a bunch of Abyssins. And it's a fun deck. You regenerate them and everything. Yeah, maybe that would be fun.
It's totally cheesy, but I wouldn't mind playing some games of that. Like I was, when I saw that card come out in Jabba's Palace, that's what my brain immediately went to. I was like, well, why don't I just put like 30 of these in my deck? You know, like what's stopping me? And you've got Abyssin Ornament to get them back and stuff. I'm like, would this actually work? Like, this is ridiculous. And then I just spent like a month in high school, just like every time I was at the card shop being like, hey, you got any Abyssins? I was like a crack addict with Abyssins. I was like, you got any more of those Abyssins in your packs? And so I got a bunch. I had like a friend in Wisconsin mail me some, and I just put together a deck that I thought would work. And then I think that thing went like undefeated for like months. Nice. And everyone hated it, but it was hilarious to me, at least.
Well, I have a feeling like right after this episode airs, you're gonna have a lot of people messaging you via Twitter, Slack, or something, if for this deck list for some of the events that are coming up in the Retro League.
I got to rebuild it. Yeah. I've been working on rebuilding it. I'm trying to remember everything that was in there, but I think the rule of thumb when you're making an Endless Abyssin deck is just to be like as cheesy and unfair and like mean as possible when you're building it. Like, you're not making an Endless Abyssin deck to make friends. You're making it to win games, you know? And if you keep that in mind, you can't go wrong.
That's cool. Yeah, so switching gears a little more macro, definitely something I wanted to ask you about. I'm guilty. I don't play too many other games. I know Dan plays Magic and some other games, but obviously your perspective, being in the industry, I guess just overarching question is just how do you kind of view this interesting game that we have that's, some people use the term dead, which I kind of always take a little offense to it. I think I prefer like out of print. But like, where does it kind of fit? Because obviously like World of Warcraft and StarCraft, and there's all these like, big time, video game type games that are probably much more mainstream, but we have this complex card game here. I guess just general thoughts on the game, where it might fit, if it has any peers in your experience.
I think I like to sort of do comparisons to traditional sports, right? Where if like, League of Legends is like football, then I think like a lot of card games, and I would lump, all the card games into here, whether it's digital like Hearthstone or Runeterra, to then like physical like Magic and I guess digital too now, but and then other card games. I would say those are more in the line of like darts or bowling or something like that, where there's a significant following, but it's gonna be niche. You're never gonna fill arenas for bowling, and you're never gonna like fill huge 20,000 person arenas for like for Magic the Gathering or something, right? And so I think Star Wars kind of fits in there too, where you're going to have a very passionate fan base, and it's never going to be huge, but who cares? Like, it doesn't need to be huge, right? I mean, we've got enough people to run events. It seemed from what I've been kind of hearing that there's more people playing now than ever. The pandemic, I think, kind of helped a little bit with that, because it gave people some time to kind of get into it and all that. So, it'll never be huge, but it doesn't need to be. It's just something we love, and the more people we can share with the game, the more we can share the game with people, the better. And I think we kind of just like, we're not in this to create like a huge profitable Star Wars CCG industry. We're just here to like make sure there's events and a place for people to play, right? So I think that's fine. I think there's no expectation to try to match those bigger things.
Right. Yeah. No. And our community, we just have so many people that have feedback on different cards, and one of the good things about the virtual slips is design can kind of tweak things much more easier rather than printing all new stuff. They can,
right,
if some card is overpowered, they can tweak it, or they can come out with some new stuff to adjust for it. But yeah, that's an interesting comment about more people now than ever, because in some ways I do think that, just because so many people who may not have any players near them or any communities around them, they can just fire up a game real easily. But then at the same time, back in like the late 90s, like everyone, like Star Wars CCG was so big, like so many communities were having
people don't realize how huge it was. Yeah, it was like the second biggest behind Magic for a long time.
Yeah, it was crazy. I remember like my locals, I think I'd go to one every month, and there was always 25 people outside of Philly, and that was happening all over the country, even all Europe and Asia had some communities too. So yeah, it's interesting now, because I think there's less people playing the game, but I think we talk a lot about like solving the meta, because the people are just getting so many more repetitions and tweaking and stuff, so everything moves a lot faster. But
yeah. Well, that's true for any card game now, right? Where it's like back in the day, like, you know, in the 90s and all that, like we had what, like Scry magazine, and that was it basically. Like there, when a expansion came out, everyone was opening the packs and seeing the cards for the first time, you know. And so the meta was a lot of times, so the meta was kind of developing like as people were beginning to play with the cards and discover them, you know. And that was fun because you'd be like playing your deck and you're like, you see a new card you've never seen before and you're like, wait a second, that'd be perfect, you know, for my deck. Why didn't I know about this? And you know, so now there's a much shorter phase of like experimentation, and almost no phase in some cases, because everything is, the meta is essentially figured out before the expansion even releases, which I think is a big problem, honestly, with games like Magic and stuff like that, where, you know, I think it takes a lot of the fun out of it, frankly. I always love the experimental phase of things where people don't quite know how to fit everything together and they're trying to figure it out. So yeah, I mean, that is a big change from before, I think, which, you know, I guess if you grew up with it like this, or you grew up in the internet age where you always, you know, have access to it, then it just feels normal, you know. But for those of us who remember that sort of like experimentation era, you know, where like everyone was getting to try stuff and a lot more things were viable because no one really had solved it yet and it took longer to solve, I had a lot of fun with that. I do kind of miss the era a little bit.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to ask you too, and I think I know what you're going to say, but well, maybe I'll preface it this way. I think like you and Flake and Team Covenant, I've heard so many people who kind of talk about Star Wars CCG kind of here and there. You know, I'm always so proud of this game, even just being a player from a long time ago, but just the way that the mechanics reflect Star Wars and the way there's so much theme and you could be as thematic or as unthematic as you want. But one thing I always love, and I know our design advocate, Chris Kelly, talks about this a lot, how certain cards do thematic things. Like, for example, Rey is a card. And when you deploy her, you get to look in your use pile. And because she's a scavenger, and that's you're scavenging your use pile for a card. Like little stuff like that to find out all the time. And like my father before me is a card, and that makes Luke add 1 to his battle destinies the same way Darth Vader from Premiere adds 1 to his battle destinies. And those are things that some people find them right away, some people over time. But I guess just want to throw it to you just in terms of theme, mechanics, how the game reflects Star Wars in your experiences.
I mean, I think that's always been the game's biggest strength, right? Is that like, as a kid, what really appealed to me about the game is that is that I felt like I was able to like play out a scene from the movie, you know, through a deck, whether it's like Echo Base Operations or, you know, target the main power generators in Hoth, right? You've got both of the main objectives on either side that you can play out against each other, right? And that's extremely fun because it's like you're putting down your walkers or you're putting down your snow speeders on the other side, and you've got these locations, you're moving from place to place, and you really feel like you are participating in that scene in the movie. And then, you know, I told you about the carbon freezing stuff. I love the, you know, the whole like path of like fighting a battle, capturing someone, taking them to the carbonite chamber, building things up with like the effect with the Ugnaughts there and all that, giving yourself the better chance to like hit the carbon freeze, you know, when you draw the battle destiny for it, or not battle destiny, you draw destiny for it. And so,
there's
yeah,
a risk
I mean, that's,
that you can miss and the character dies too, which is even like so thematic. If you draw too low and the character's lost, that's so neat.
Yeah, they talk about it in Empire Strikes Back. You know, there's the big risk to try to free someone in carbonite. So it's that level of attention to detail has always just blown my mind with the game. That they were able to construct this game with a rules set that really let you play everything out in such an accurate, detailed way. It's really fascinating to me, and it's very cool, and it is neat to see the virtual sets kind of continue along that trend with like some of the things you mentioned, right, with Rey and then my father before me, where you're adding mechanics into the game that reflect what the character was like in the movie or what they were doing. Like, I think that's a core piece of what makes the Star Wars CCG great, you know. So very cool to see that continuing on, because that was always my favorite part of the game, you know. That's always my big selling point when I tell people about the game. It's like you get to really feel like you're in this scene in Star Wars, you know. It's fun, but you don't know how it's going to play out. Maybe this time the Empire wins, you know. You have to like play well enough to win it if you're the Rebels, right? So it's fun.
So you were talking about like the themes that you've seen in the game over the past and stuff. So what are some of the themes that you as a Star Wars fan would want to see in the future? Because I know right now design is moving towards like a lot more themes, but we haven't tackled everything.
I mean, it'd be neat. It's and forgive me if I say something that's already in there because I'm not 100% familiar yet with the virtual slips, but I think incorporating some of the stuff from the new Disney Plus shows. I think it's going to be really important going forward. And we do have some Mandalorian stuff in the game already and everything. But just doing things like, it'd be neat if there was a way, and I know some people are going to hate that I bring this up, but I think it'd be great if there was a way you could build a deck around the biker gang from Book of Boba Fett. Everybody hated them. Everybody hated them, and for good reason, because they were very ham-fistedly included into the series and all that, and that was not a good show. Let's be honest. Book of Boba Fett was not a good show. I'm sorry, but I will argue with people that biker gang is the most Star Wars thing that happened in that show, actually, because the idea of this very retro look inspired biker thing where it's like these disaffected teens that are tired of the drab gray surroundings of Tatooine, and so they color their bikes super bright and they mod themselves and all that. That's right out of old George Lucas stuff, right? So that, to me, that was like one of the most Star Wars things in concept in Book of Boba Fett, but it was just executed very poorly, unfortunately. But I would love, and see, this is something that the Star Wars CCG can do better, is you can take that concept and you can make cards around it and make it cool, right? Because the concept of this sort of like, teen like speeder bike gang on Tatooine is cool. They could have all sorts of adventures and all that kind of stuff. So, having a card for each one of them and having their matching bikes, or having like them on the bike as the card. And then, I don't know, inventing objectives for them and stuff like that. I feel like things like that, there's a lot of design opportunity to go deep on those obscure things, which is another thing that they always did in the past anyway, in the Decipher era. So I think zeroing in on things like that, unexpected parts of series that people, wouldn't think about going deep into, we can do that and have fun with it. And I think that'd be pretty cool.
And that's one of the nice thing is design, and Chris Kelly and his team, they listen to a lot of the players. So people that aren't even on the design team will come up with a good idea. Chris might just decide, well, this is not half bad, and they'll run with it. A lot of the cards that we've seen, even though they aren't exactly player created cards, have been created just by Chris and some of the other people just sitting around after a tournament and talking. And
that's great. And it blew my mind when I was playing against someone at that event in April, and he was one of the designers. I forget his name, but
Ryan Jellison, probably.
Perhaps. I'm terrible.
He's on the design team, and he's in Southern California.
Okay, probably. But I think when we were having a conversation, like he's been designing Star Wars CCG cards longer than like the people at Decipher did, which is just, it blew my mind, like, to realize that. I was like, this game has gone on for so much longer past the Decipher era, so it's like the Decipher era was important, right? And it was like what started everything, but things have evolved so much since then, and now there's people that have legit designed the game longer than people Decipher did, which is amazing. It doesn't take away from what the Decipher designers did, of course. It's just cool that this legacy has gone on for so long.
Still a lot of lessons learned too from the Decipher era, from the early PC era. So that's what's really neat, is that our design team now, they can look back. And going back to Gem for a minute, like, we have our playtesting team now where players can just test these cards that are in development and get a feel for them, get a lot of reps in. I know I've heard sometimes about stories back in the day with Decipher, they'd fly out 15, 20 people, they'd play over a weekend, and then they'd have their set, where now it's a little different. And I know there's always a cautious approach, of sometimes too cautious, but usually just, you don't want to have too many cards, too much bloat, and make sure that things are tested and refined nicely so that they don't completely dominate the meta when they come out. But you describing that situation kind of made me think, what's really neat about the game too is sometimes, like, you might have a new objective that gets layered on, but then you have all these cards that have been around a while. Some of them have been around for 20 years that get introduced. I was just playing last night against a former world champion on Gemp who was playing Wooher, who was making my devices lost. And it was like, I think that's some pretty good tech against the meta right now. Is a lot of lightsabers and stuff. So
that's true.
It's just so cool how stuff gets uncovered, or even like in virtual sets, like with the Rogue One theme, for example, that objective came out, I think, in like virtual set 9 or 10, but like Jyn Erso was like set 5 or 6. And like, there's like this, Cassian Andor was like around that time. There's like this slow build where they kind of lay out the framework. And then that's like one of those beautiful things about this game, is then something clicks and it's like, oh, now I can just synergize all these pieces together. Some of them have been around for a long time. Some of them are brand new. And then you make a deck that really works. And it's really, really satisfying.
Wow, using Woo Her against that's pretty smart. That's that's because that's a card that everyone was like, well, whatever, it's not very useful, you know. But
Flavor.
nowadays, yeah, when you see like you said, all the lightsabers, like I've been playing Qui-Gon Communing on light side and learning that, and yeah, you definitely need a lot of lightsabers for that deck. So Woo Her would not be fun to run into.
Yeah, no, it was neat.
I don't know.
But
oh wait, Woo Her is light side, isn't he? Or is he dark
no,
side?
he's dark side.
He's dark side. Okay, good. For a second there, I thought I misremembered that and embarrassed myself, but
yeah,
I was doing
I
so.
can't even think what card that is.
Wooer is
That's
a
the Cantina guy
Cantina.
from Premiere, you know? It's the guy that's like, you're kind. We don't serve their kind here. They'll have to wait outside. That guy. That's who.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll pull it real quick.
Cantina bartender. Yep.
Man, now I feel embarrassed.
Well, I was reading the text. I was like, wait, this is kind of good. All right, so basically, at the beginning of your control phrase, any weapons or droids present at same site, all of them are lost.
And thematic too. Thematic,
So
because
very
what does he yell in the movie? He yells no blasters, you know?
What you could do is you could Ellis Hellrod him.
Oh gosh.
And all of a sudden you're in front of your opponent during your activate phase.
Jared.
Ellis Hellrod in front of like 3 Jedi with lightsabers. And then
nobody expects a surprise Woo Her.
Exactly. You hit the pass button, dark side goes to their control phase, and all the lightsabers are gone.
Jared,
So,
you're really
this is the
you're
kind
starting
of
to
thing
sound
that's
like Scott.
I mean, this is the kind of thing that's great about the Star Wars CCG too, because you do run into these ridiculous situations. Like, you know, it's where you have all these, you know, Jedi there, and then Woo Her shows up and confiscates all their lightsabers. It's like this, you know, it's ridiculous to think about, but you know, in the game it can happen. But that's what I love too.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like whenever you play the game, if you're a big fan of the movies, you know, which many of us are, the situations that emerge are just hilarious, right?
Mhm.
So I love that kind of stuff, you know.
should we make that our sticker book token, Dan? Does that make sense?
Woo Her.
Woo Her?
Yeah, I think it should be.
Or we
you
have like
go.
this program where we give out like a token on the streams, and then people can submit and then they get prizes basically. So, and I'm sure Dan will provide like details during the show. But I have I had two more questions for you. One of them you already answered, I think, just asking you about like your favorite cards. It sounds like the never-ending abyssins are probably your favorite card, your favorite deck.
It was fun to play that deck. I still feel guilty about that to this day, but it was fun. Yeah.
So I have one more question. Dan might have more, but the one I definitely wanted to ask, kind of another macro one, is just, you know, given again your experiences, your knowledge of the gaming industry, can you think of anything that might take the game up a level in terms of popularity? I know Dan is our stream team lead. We try to cover a lot of different events, definitely majors events like this weekend, for example, will be live coverage. But I know the game's complexity is sometimes its best feature, but sometimes it's a hindrance in terms of getting into the game. And we do have some people generating some tutorials and things to help lower the barriers of entry. But I guess just anything that kind of comes to mind of, I wish they did this, or I think if they did this, it would take it up a little level or make it a little more popular, that type of stuff. To put you on the spot.
You know, again, like if I say something that you're already doing, forgive me. But you know, things like new player weekends or new player, you know, sessions or something like that, where, you know, you get people in GEMP with friends that already play and you try to walk them through games, and doing things like that in person obviously is good too. But that kind of thing, there's only, I think it's there, you know, obviously you can make like tutorial videos, which there are a bunch of those out there, but it's really difficult to get someone to sit through an entire tutorial video in this current modern age, you know. So I don't know if the returns on those are worth making them, you know. I think they kind of have to exist, but I don't know if they're gonna really grab a lot of people out of the blue, you know. I think it's just a lot of word of mouth, you know. I think it's a lot of that kind of thing, and then running people through practice games, finding like what is the most simple light side dark side deck we can make that shows off the mechanics of the game in a very easy understandable way, and then, you know, introduces you know, at some point in the game to the idea that there's more complex concepts that will be fun to explore, you know. That's always kind of the trouble with it, because I mean, in esports we run into a similar thing all the time, right, where it's like, how do you take this complex game and make more people want to watch it, more people want to play it, you know. Like I do Rainbow Six right now, which is like the most complex tactical shooter on the planet. It's a great game, but it's incredibly complex, so they, you know, suffer from the same thing, where it's difficult to draw new players in, because you look at the game and it's just incomprehensible. Because you can in this game, the map is like 3 levels of a building. You can break through walls, through ceilings and floors, like every operator has different gadgets and all that. So the strategy in the game is incredible, because you can do all these really interesting. Positioning things, you can open up pre-executed holes in the wall that you can then look through to see kind of the other side of the building. And you have pros that'll just like put a bullet hole in something, and then they'll use their scope and shoot through that bullet hole at people. So it's you know, and so you really need to know the positioning to know the game. But it's one of those things where it's like it's hard to balance having a good complex game with having it be accessible for people too. And that's kind of the eternal struggle for anything beyond like, you know, Yahtzee, right? So I think just getting more people to play in person with their friends, or getting more people to play online with their friends, word of mouth is always going to be, I think, at the end of the day, the best thing, you know?
Awesome.
Are you ever, let me ask you a question. I've been wondering about this. Are you ever worried that the game is going to get too big and attract like too much interest from Disney? Because this is the kind of thing that where it's like, I know there's agreements in place that allow the player committee to legally operate, you know, those have existed for a long time, but that's not to say, you know, Disney couldn't rock up with their, you know, army of like billionaire lawyers and ruin our day, right? So do you ever kind of worry about that a little bit, that maybe it's good that we sort of have to like you know, be like the shuttle Tidarian at the end of Jedi and fly casual, so we don't attract too much interest from the Star Destroyer, you know?
That's a good question. I'll have to check with the marketing advocate. It's
I was going to say, Jared, you were just down at Disney World. Were you walking around fine with your?
I did not wear my Din Djarin t-shirt, although in retrospect, I wish I did.
Yeah.
That was last year's donor program t-shirt. No, it's definitely something in the back of my mind that I almost like, we don't want to get too big. I'll say that, but at the same time,
maybe I should have even brought it up.
No, we follow protocols. We know the agreements. We're very sensitive with a lot of things, like with cosplayers, and keeping true to the structure of the game. But yeah, no, it has crossed my mind sometimes of, you know, maybe we don't want to be too big.
I think the best defense is what, like, you know, what the committee has already been doing, which is staying within the confines of the legal agreement and not straying beyond those. And you know, if Disney ever does, you know, come a knocking with their lawyers, you can say, hey, we have this agreement, we've stuck to it, you know. Hope for the best, I guess.
Yeah, we don't create lore. There's just a lot of things. And actually, sometimes, like, I saw somebody on Twitter one time was like, "This is so lazy. Why don't you guys put lore in the box? This is just a full slip virtual card with no lore." It's like, we don't create lore. That's not our role. We put some characteristics in there that are necessary, like leader, but yeah, we definitely have a code, so to speak, and we stick to it. And yeah, we're pretty confident with just the growth of the game, and that we're a charitable organization. We're not making any of the profits or anything like that. So, but yeah, it's as a marketing advocate, I sometimes want to say, hey, let's get this big grand thing. Let's have this huge event. Let's make sure everyone's aware of this. And then someone's like, you know, maybe we don't want to be too out there. We want to be cautious because, and that's sometimes people might misinterpret something or that type of thing. I don't want to risk that.
See, the key is like slow growth. So you get to the point that the community is big enough so that if they ever try anything, there's enough of a public outcry that they can't follow through, you know?
And our players, our volunteers are just so enthusiastic. Like you mentioned at the beginning of this interview, like the amount of hours that people put in out of their own time is really just incredible. And like, I've only been back to the game really since 2017. I had a pretty long hiatus, but you know, people like Dan, like the other advocates, all the graphics teams, the proofing teams, design, development, all those people for literally 20 years now have spent so much time improving the game and tweaking it and put the heart and soul into it, and are just passionate about everything about it. So.
It's really incredible to me. I have so much respect for all the commitment and time that people put into the game. It really like warms my heart, you know, because you just don't see this kind of thing very often, right? No. Everyone, you know, wants to get something back, right? And this is a group, right, that's like keeping this game alive just because they like it, you know, which is so pure and it's awesome. And I feel guilty that I haven't been able to support it more over the years, you know, but going forward, I intend to. So
awesome.
Well, thank you.
But but I will say this, Eric, it has been a pleasure talking to you about where we wanted to be with time and everything. So cool. Great to have you on today. I would love to talk to you more about your experiences with the game, especially being that you're in the SoCal League. see how you're doing over there. I would love to hear you play your Infinite Abyssin deck against, say, like Bat Mouse, who plays the weirdest stuff too. So, but yeah, it has been a pleasure talking to you, Jared. It's great to have you on as well. I think this is the first time you and I have been on the show for together in over a year.
Maybe too long, Dan.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say it's my pleasure being on the show too. It's I was excited when you asked me to be on the show, and it's always fun talking about Star Wars. Like, I mean, when I was on Flake's podcast, it was about it was supposed to be about other games and things, but I think we just ended up talking about Star Wars for 75% of the time anyway. But yeah, so it's been great. I always love nerding out about Star Wars, and I get all my esports friends to play it. So there's a lot of big name esports casters out there that have played Star Wars CCG now, and I can't say they've all gotten into it, but they've at least played it and been exposed to it, which is cool.
That's awesome.
Play.starwarsccg.org. That's GEMP, and that's free and access to every card and any format. So if people want to play Premier only, if they want to play sealed deck, if they want to play open,
get those timer mines out.
Exactly. So yeah, play.starwarsccg.org. That's where just so much is happening. People just play games and build community, and obviously we have forums, Slack, everything like that as well. So, but yeah, I can't thank you enough for coming on, and this is an awesome conversation.
My pleasure.
And everybody who's watching, make sure you follow Eric on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, all these social media, so he can grow as a esports broadcaster.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you guys. And yeah, we'll go back to the normal show here in a second, and we'll wrap things up. Again, your token for today, just so everybody knows, because I didn't give out one last week, is Wooher in honor of
Nice.
The former world champ that Jared played earlier.
Will remain nameless, but most people could probably figure it out.
I think I have an inkling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like my kind of scum. Fearless and inventive.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, thanks to big shout out to Eric and Jared for doing that interview. Again, we did that on Monday, so it was a really good interview. Yeah, we are not live, Bill, but yeah, it was a fun interview and everything. So again, if you haven't done it yet, make sure you go follow Eric on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, all the social media. Really fun guy, and hopefully maybe one day we'll have him as a guest commentator for an event. So, but yeah, for this weekend, everybody make sure you tune into the PC channel on Saturday. Again, the start time is 11 Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. So we'll have all your live coverage. It will be myself, Bill Kafer, and Jeremy DiPaolo on the commentary on Saturday. Sunday, 8 a.m. Pacific. Oh, 8 a.m. Pacific, not 7. I'm time zones really, like, ever since I moved from California, the time zones just don't exist anymore. It's like East Coast or nothing. Exactly, Bill. Exactly. But yeah, start time is 11 a.m. 8 Pacific for all your national coverage. It'll be myself, Bill, and Jeremy on Saturday. Sunday we'll hopefully have, I think we have somebody lined up at the event for if they don't make the top 8. So we'll have 1 or 2 people from the event doing commentator duties on Sunday. So make sure you stick around on that as well. We'll have plenty of tokens to give out. If you guys are participating in the sticker program, maybe Jared will present us with some prizes or something to give away on Saturday for those who are watching as well. And but again, make sure you guys tune in on Saturday and Sunday for all your Nationals coverage. So until then, everybody have a good rest of your week, and I will see everybody bright and early on Saturday morning. Until then, everybody be safe, take care, and as always, may the Force be with you.